Hi and welcome to the Art of Creating. My name is Julia and in this video I'm going to talk about glazing in watercolor. What is glazing? Do we even need it? Do we use it? And what does it actually even mean? So let's talk about watercolor first. Watercolor is a transparent medium, and that means that if you have a pencil mark on the paper or some pen marks, it could be even another color of paint already on your paper. If you apply watercolor layer over the top of it, you are going to see what's underneath because watercolor is transparent. Different brands of watercolor have different levels of transparency as well. Some are more opaque and some are more transparent, but in general, watercolor is a transparent medium. And that's where glazing comes in. Glazing means you apply a layer of watercolor paint on top of an existing color. So let's have a look at a few examples where I show you different ways you can use it, some pros and cons of glazing, and how to avoid mistakes and ruining your painting. Here I have prepared a few squares where I have already applied the color, and I'm going to show you how glazing works and the differences between different ways you can use it, basically what it all means, how to use it properly, and what to do so that you don't ruin your painting. So as I've mentioned earlier, watercolor is a transparent medium, which means when you apply the color to your paper, you can see what's underneath. So you can see my line work here where I have drawn the outline of the square, and I have put the paint just over the edge, and you can still see that line under it. Even though this color is, it's not dark, but it's reasonably dark, you can still see the color, the line that's underneath. That's because watercolor is transparent. So we need to keep that in mind when we are layering our color on top of an existing color. So in this example, I have blue color on my paper and all of these colors are already dry. So you need to make sure that the color underneath on your paperwork is already dry. So I've got blue here, and say I want to add, let's say yellow on top of this color, and we'll see what happens. So I'll just pick up a yellow watercolor paint and I will just apply it on my square. So because we are layering our yellow on top of an existing color, it is changing the color that we can see. So we have blue underneath and we have yellow on top, and when you look at them together, you are starting to see green. Let's look at another example over here. This is yellow, and let's say I want to add a bit of red. So I pick up a bit of red on my paintbrush and I just lightly go over my color. So you no longer see yellow and you don't necessarily see red either. You're seeing more of an orange color because they're layered on top of each other. Therefore visually you're seeing both of them mix. So you're getting more of an orange. And this is why it is important for you to know your color theory, how the colors mix and what colors work together in watercolor, because when you are layering colors on top of each other, they mix. So you need to know what colors will go together, and so that you don't create mud on your paper. So look at this example here. We have blue on our square already on our paper, and let's say we want to add a bit of red on top of it. So we add our red, and we're not going to cover the whole square. We're only going to go on half of it. So you can see how the red has sort of changed into more of a burgundy purplish color. It depends on how much pigment you're actually layering. But look what happens here. We have a harsh transition between the two colors. So this is our color that was already dry, and this is our second layer that we've applied. You can see a very definite transition between the two colors. If we have both of these color is still wet and we do it all in one layer, these two will blend together. But because one was already dry, the second layer creates a harsh transition between the first layer and the second layer. If you don't want this effect, you could then do a light wash to blend the two together, or you can try and mix the two in one layer. However, knowing this can help you do certain effects and textures if that's what you want. For example, we have in this square, we will pick up a bit of red again, and we, for example, might want to create a pattern. We might want to create, say, a tablecloth or something like that, where we just want to create a pattern with our colors layering on top of each other. And you might actually want those transitions to be hard to actually see the pattern. Now let's look at another example of glazing and layering colors on top of each other. So these are the things you need to keep in mind when you're planning your painting and you're trying to work out in what order to layer your colors and how to approach certain sections of the painting. So here we have an example of a very dark color that's already on our paper. So what we want to do in this example is get some light color and try to layer it on top. So we will pick up some yellow, which is going to be a much lighter color, and layer it on top of our dark blue. You can hardly see it. There's not much definition between the two. You can hardly tell that it's yellow or that it was yellow. It's only just starting to look a little bit greener, but you can't really tell that you've layered something on top of it. So if you're wanting to add a light color in a certain section of the painting, you really need to work from light to dark, because you can't work from dark to light in watercolor. So this is something you need to keep in mind. However, you might want to actually use this technique in a painting. For example, if we have this square, which is a very dark blue, and we thought that we actually want this color to be a little bit more on the purple side rather than blue. So we want to maybe get a light wash of purplish or pinkish color and just add a very light glaze over the top of it to just slightly change the tone of what's underneath. So we're not changing it completely. We don't need our light lilac color to come out very strong, but it does change the shade of it slightly and creates just a slightly different color. And if you're wanting to make that adjustment, that slight adjustment in your painting, you can do it with a very light wash of a lighter color. In our next example, we are going to look at adding dark color on top of the light color. So I will grab some purple and I will layer it over this light blue. So this is a darker color than what's underneath, and you can see that it pretty much covers what's under it. You can't tell that it was really blue underneath. That's why we are working from light to dark, because dark can take over the lighter colors that's underneath, as opposed to a lighter color cannot take over what's under it if it's darker. So for example, it's not like an oil painting where you can easily add a light color on top and still be able to see those highlights. We need to preserve our highlights and work from light to dark. So in this case, in this example, I will show you how we can use this technique in our painting. So what we would typically do is we would do a light wash of color in the section of the painting that we want to cover. So we want to, in this example, cover it with light blue, and blue is going to be our lightest tone. And then we are going to work around it, darkening up the sections and creating shadows so that we can make our object more 3D and show the difference between the highlights and the darks. So for example, we will add a little bit more blue. We want to say do this area of the square a little bit darker, so we can darken this section up, and we can keep working, keep adding the colors, doing a gradual transition, keep making it darker and darker. You can add some other color to darken it up even more. So you can see how we're adding darker colors on top of the lighter colors, and we can create shades and the darker areas of the painting by layering it this way. But we wouldn't be able to do it the other way. We wouldn't be able to start from this color and end up with this. We have to do this bit first and then make sure that we are not covering this area if we want it to stay light. So that's basically what glazing is all about. So just in summary, glazing is when we have a layer of color, layer of our watercolor paint going over an existing color which is already dry. Because if both are wet, we're just mixing them. But if the first layer is dry, we're layering our second paint on top, creating a new color as you look through both colors. So we can have a full coverage, mixing the colors together. We can create patterns. We can change our tones if we need to change something or adjust. Or we can create shadows and different color sections in our painting if we want them to be in darker colors while working on top of the lighter colors. I hope this explains it. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! If you have enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos.